When DeMar DeRozan signed with the Chicago Bulls, it was clear that the Spurs would be entering rebuild mode. The past few seasons, the Spurs were at a bit of a crossroads as they had a number of interesting young pieces, but they also had all-star caliber vets in DeRozan and LaMarcus Aldridge. This resulted in San Antonio being a team that was not good enough to win a championship, but also not bad enough to get a good lottery pick. In many people's eyes, a fixation on sneaking into the playoffs is a recipe for disaster. In all likelihood, a 7th or 8th seed is going to get bounced out in the first round, and all they'll have to show for it is a mid-first round pick. On top of that, by having your young guys play second fiddle to more established veterans, they aren't going to get as many touches or minutes, which some may argue is bad for their development. However, this is a very black and white way of thinking, as it doesn't consider the impact that a winning culture has on player development. Not only is this young core talented, but they know how to play the game the right way. They look fluid on offense, they play great team defense, and despite having a poor record, the Spurs have had a shot in all but one of their games so far. The Spurs have always been viewed as a boring team, which has caused a lot of people to sleep on them, so in today's video, I'm going to be explaining why you shouldn't sleep on the most underrated young core in the NBA.
Murray, inside, incredible! LeBron James with no regard for human life. They do have a timeout, decide not to use it. Curry, way downtown, bang! Bang! Oh, what a shot from Curry!
Before I talk about the players on this roster, I think it's important for me to tell you how they ended up on this team. On the screen, I've listed the players on this team who were drafted by San Antonio, and as you can see, most of them were selected in the back half of the first round or later. Devin Vassell and Josh Primo are the only ones that were picked in the lottery, and even they weren't top 10 selections. What this should tell you is that the Spurs have an intelligent enough front office to bring in impact players, regardless of where they are slated to pick in a given draft. Now getting into their actual roster, a fully healthy Spurs team puts out a starting lineup of DeJounte Murray, Derek White, Doug McDermott, Kelton Johnson, and Jakob Poeltl. In my opinion, the Murray and White backcourt is the most underrated backcourt in the entire league. Defensively, they are long and skilled enough to defend both guard spots, and on top of that, they take pride in shutting down their matchups. These two have great instincts, which allows them to get a lot of steals, deflections, blocks, and in the case of Derek White, take a lot of charges. Offensively, the main knock against Murray and White is that they are inconsistent on that end. The biggest thing that's preventing Murray from becoming more consistent is his outside shooting. For his career, DeJounte is just a 33.3% three-point shooter on 1.6 attempts per game. This season hasn't been any better, as he's on par with his career average of 33.3%, albeit on 4 attempts a night. However, I do believe there's reason for optimism. Murray has not improved his three-point shot much since entering the league, but he has significantly improved his percentages from the mid-range and at the free throw line too. DeJounte was a terrible mid-range shooter during the first 2 years of his career, but over the last 2 seasons, he's been shooting in the mid to high 40s, which is actually quite good. In addition, Murray was just a 70% free throw shooter during his rookie and sophomore seasons. However, he shot 79% in year 3 and 4. Now, these improvements don't guarantee that Murray will improve his three-point shot, but those developments should give Spurs fans hope. Getting to the free throw line more often would be nice as well, but becoming a respectable outside shooter is the most important element for Murray to add to his game. In Derek White's case, he is just generally inconsistent. Prior to this season, White was more efficient when he took 10 or more shots in a given night, but that hasn't been the case this year. To start the season, White has averaged 10.8 shots per game, but he's shooting career lows from the field and from the three-point line. However, a silver lining in all of this is that White and Murray have been really good passers this year. Not only are the two of them averaging career highs in assists, but their turnover numbers have been really low as well. Their passing has really opened up the Spurs offense, getting good looks for their teammates. Above everyone though, Jakob Poeltl has benefited the most from their passes. Poeltl has been really good in the pick and roll this year because he's continuing to add layers to his game. He can go all the way and finish at the rim. If a help defender comes, he'll stay patient and make the right pass. And if his defender sags off on him, he's added this nice little stationary floater that he can go to. He's also been really good at finding cutters, which is good for a few reasons. Not only does his passing ability generate good looks for his teammates, but because he's been so good as a passer, it's incentivized his teammates to make hard cuts to the rim. Outside of his improving skills as a scorer and passer, Poeltl has been elite on the offensive boards. Part of this has to do with Poeltl simply outworking his opponents, but he also has great hands, which has played a part too. While Poeltl is continuing to improve on the offensive end, it's his defense that has solidified him as the starting center of this team. He has incredible awareness on defense, which helps him determine how much he should drop or come up when guarding the pick and roll. It prevents him from leaving his feet on shot fakes, and it helps him recognize the exact time to provide help defense. Not only does Poeltl benefit from having tremendous IQ, he also benefits from his physical tools and athletic ability. It goes under the radar because he doesn't appear to be as big as centers like Joel Embiid or Rudy Gobert, but Poeltl is listed at 7'1" and 245 pounds. In addition to that, he has a 36-inch vertical leap, which helps him make incredible defensive plays like this. Another young player that I've been impressed with is Kelton Johnson. For the first 2 years of his career, the allure with Johnson's game had to do with how hard he played. Kelton is only listed at 6'5", but he plays much bigger than that. Kelton still has a lot of room to grow on the defensive end, but his physical nature allows him to play solid defense against bigger players. Then on the offensive end, he's fearless attacking the bucket. He's not afraid to go into the body of bigger players to create space, which plays a large part in him being so efficient in the paint. Kelton could carve out a pretty nice career for himself just by playing the tough, physical brand of basketball that he does, but for him to take that next step, everyone knew that he had to add more layers to his game. Luckily for Spurs fans, he showed some good signs through the first 11 games. Kelton's mid-range game has actually been quite impressive, and he's made a number of difficult shots this year, showing off an improved touch. He's also added a nice floater, and because he's such a physical player, he can shed defenders and get that shot off whenever he wants. The results haven't been perfect 100% of the time. There are still moments where Kelton attacks the bucket without a plan, which results in a bad shot, but the improvements have been nice to see. Kelton's best offensive skill will always be his slashing, but if he continues to be an effective mid-range scorer, and he can develop into at least a respectable three-point shooter, passing lanes will start to open up for him, and he can become a more well-rounded offensive player. Speaking of offense, Lonnie Walker and Devin Vassell have given San Antonio some nice scoring options off their bench. Lonnie Walker has been an interesting case in San Antonio, as some nights he looks like a future all-star, while on others he looks like a solid role player. The biggest thing holding Lonnie back right now is inconsistency. I've liked what I've seen from him on the defensive end this year, as he's been active and playing good team defense in the process. Where most of his inconsistencies lie are on offense. Lonnie is not always aggressive, but when he is, he shows off a lot of ability. Lonnie has elite athleticism and explosiveness, and he's capable of finishing some very difficult shots around the rim. He is not an elite outside shooter by any means, but 34.9% on just under 6 attempts per game is definitely respectable, and while it's on low volume, Lonnie is making more than 50% of his mid-range shots. Like many of his teammates, Lonnie is also averaging a career high in assists at 2.6 a night. He's making good reads in the pick and roll, and he's made the right passes in transition situations as well. Lonnie is still very young at just 22 years of age, so there's still a possibility they could develop into a star, but a better bet to become an all-star level player would be Devin Vassell. Vassell has been really impressive on both ends of the floor this year. He's only 6'5", but he has a 6'10" wingspan, which helps him get into passing lanes and block or contest shots. He is a highly intelligent defensive player as well, frequently making the correct defensive rotations and rarely ever making mistakes. He is a versatile defender that can guard multiple positions, and because of this, I don't think it will be much longer before he takes Doug McDermott's spot in the starting lineup. However, what excites me the most about Vassell is his offensive potential. One of the issues with the Spurs this year is that they don't have a go-to scorer. They have a number of guys with scoring ability, and they have a fluid offensive system with lots of movement, but they don't have anyone that can consistently get them a bucket when they need some points. While he's still growing, I think Vassell could become San Antonio's go-to guy. His three-point percentage isn't great at the moment, but his shot looks good, and I expect that percentage to rise. He's been a really good mid-range shooter, and he moves very well without the ball. What makes Vassell so intriguing is that he has a soft touch to go along with his long wingspan. He regularly takes and makes shots over defenders in the mid-range, and with each game his shot creation ability seems to get better and better. His high release point on his jumper allows him to get his shot off quite easily, and that's a massive luxury. Once his three-point percentage starts to increase, which I'm pretty confident that it will, he'll just have to improve his finishing around the rim to become a great 3-level scorer. Vassell is only 21 years old and is averaging 11 points per game coming off the bench for a team-oriented squad. Once he gets the starting spot, I expect him to average 15 to 16 points, which again, for a 21-year-old on a team like the Spurs would be highly impressive. They also have some other young guys on this team like Drew Eubanks, Keita Bates-Diop, and the 18-year-old Josh Primo, but someone I'm really excited about is Trey Jones. Jones didn't get many minutes during his rookie season, but he looked incredible when he did get the opportunity to play in the G League bubble. In 7 games in the G League, Trey averaged 18.1 points, 5.3 rebounds, 9.7 assists, 1.4 steals, and 3.3 turnovers per game. Considering Trey was going up against older and more experienced competition, it's pretty impressive that he had a nearly 3-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. Efficiency-wise, Jones did shoot 44.6% from the field and 83.3% from the free throw line, but he shot just 9% from 3 on 1.6 attempts per game. 3-point shooting was a big concern for him coming into the league, which is part of the reason why he fell to the second round of the draft. He's been getting a little bit more playing time to start his second year, but he's been hesitant to even attempt threes. I'm not sure how his 3-point shot will develop, but if he can at least become a passable outside shooter like his brother Tyus, I think he could be a really good backup point guard in this league. He's already a great defender, ball handler, and cutter, and it doesn't hurt that he's been able to learn from Coach K at Duke, and now Greg Popovich in the NBA. Like the other young guys on this team, Trey is smart and he plays the game the right way, which is ultimately what compelled me to make a video on this team. Not many people talk about the Spurs because they aren't a big market team and they don't have a young offensive superstar, but what they do have is a really smart and selfless young core that is being developed by a franchise with a winning culture. The Spurs already have a young, deep roster, and they'll only add to that next summer when in all likelihood, they'll have their first top 10 pick in over 2 decades. This is a very exciting young team, and I expect them to be back in the playoffs very soon. That's going to be all for today's video. Make sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below. And with all that being said, I'm out, and I'll see you in the next video.